Khairy Jamaluddin. Tuan-tuan dan puan, ini bukan pengumuman calon gabungan tidak. Saya nak jelaskan di sini, kita non-partisan. Event ini event muda bersama dengan NGO. Cuma kebetulan lah kita ada Presiden muda di sini, Saudari Amira Aisyah. Untuk pengetahuan, Amira Aisyah amat berbangga sebagai anak Johor hari ini kerana Sultan beliau ini telah berulang ke Pertuan Agong. Dan tuan-tuan dan puan, kita juga ada bekas Perdana Fellow, bekas penerima anugerah belia KBS sewaktu zaman Khairy Jamaluddin, mantan Presiden muda, tuan-tuan ahli parlimen puan, Cik. Untuk yang tak kenal, saya Zaidil Baharudin. Saya ialah bekas ahli UMNO cawangan Melati Pasal 2. Perdana Fellow juga. Eksklusif kecil. Jangan tegak lagi. 04. Okay guys, begini. So we'll start off this format. Mula dengan 15 minit. Tajuk kita hari ini adalah Politics 101. How we understand startup and everything. Saya tahu kebanyakan di sini adalah ahli-ahli muda, kepimpinan akal umbi, kepimpinan parlimen dan sebagainya. Dan kita nak tahu bagaimana perjalanan Wati Khairy Jamaluddin sebagai seorang pemimpin yang boleh dikatakan progresif dan sampai ke hari ini. Walaupun sekarang ini beliau tidak berparti dan tidak berpolitik kepartian, namun kita tengok kebanyakan suka boleh. Tapi kita tengok banyak kepuasan dikeluar sekejap dan sebagainya. So, cuma fokus kita hari ini ialah lebih pada perjalanan politik. Dalam 15 minit ada beberapa soalan. Kemudian kita akan buka kepada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. You can ask any questions. There are some rules that I ask for you to follow. First and foremost, we'll do this bilingual. Jadi kalau ada soalan, boleh bahasa Melayu atau bahasa Inggeris. Kalau bahasa lain, untuk Tamil, saudara Liban boleh terjemahkan. Untuk bahasa Mandarin, Abul boleh terjemahkan. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, wow. Wow. Wow, nampak macam Melayu kan? Okay. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, sir, how are you? How's everything? This is your mic, guys. So, I think let's kick off immediately. They are here not to hear me speak. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Thank you, everyone. Because a lot of grassroots leaders are here, maybe you can start off. What first started you into politics? I mean, back when you were maybe what first started you in politics? Way back then.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Pertamanya saya akan terima kasih kepada saudara Zaidil, Amira, Bos Sadiq kerana jemput saya pada malam ini. Saya telah jemput Amira dan Sadiq ke podcast keluar sekejap beberapa bulan yang lepas, dan selepas itu pun adalah beberapa kali kita jumpa. Tak ada apa-apa agenda politik, just lebih pada perbincangan umum dalam politik negara. Dan satu hari Zaidil dan Amira datang jumpa saya, kata kalau boleh nak jumpa dengan sebahagian daripada aktivis yang sama ada ahli muda ataupun aktivis yang telah pun bersama dengan muda. Jadi saya ucapkan terima kasih kerana ada yang saya tak kenal tapi mungkin saya pernah nampak dalam media sosial, untuk saudara Amir, I follow you. Andy was a candidate dalam pilihan raya.
Amir dulu selalu kutuk dulu, tapi sekarang dia dah pusing. Dulu dia selalu kutuk.
Sekarang dalam Malaysia semua pusing-pusing. Pusing. So mungkin kita just start at the beginning, and then kita boleh buka pada soalan nanti. Zaidil, I leave it to you to moderate the session. Saya slightly older than all of you. I'm 48 now this year, so that puts me about a decade or two ahead of you guys. Apa yang Zaidil kata tadi memang betul. I crossed paths with Sadiq when he was still a university student, and masa itu saya Menteri Belia dan Sukan. I started a program called the Perdana Fellows, which is an internship program, and he won a place as a Perdana Fellow, and I also gave him one of the nominations for Anugerah Belia Perdana Negara, which was handed over by Datuk Sri Najib to Sadiq, very topical person. But anyway, we can come to that later. Never in a million years did I think that this person that I would appoint as Perdana Fellow, as well as bagi Anugerah Belia, will replace me as Menteri Belia dan Sukan. That was one of the great twists and maybe not irony, but great twist in life. But I looked at it as a positive because I think Sadiq is responsible for his own success. But whatever little contribution I had, Alhamdulillah, dia pun sudah menjadi seorang yang berjaya, dan saya doakan akan terus menjadi seorang yang berjaya. Anyway, coming back to the beginning of my story. So I became politically quite active in the 90s. I was in university in the 1990s in the UK. Saya datang dari latar belakang, saya tak pernah bersekolah di Malaysia. Not my fault, but because my father was working for the foreign ministry. Jadi saya lahir di luar negara, saya lahir di Kuwait. Maksud saya ikutlah di mana dia dapat posting, saya pun pergi sana. Dan waktu dia bersara, saya dah dalam sekolah menengah, so he sent me to boarding school, and I went to the UK for my education. So saya tak datang daripada latar belakang yang biasa, sekolah kebangsaan dan sebagainya. But for whatever reason, when I arrived at university, I had this strong desire to want to become involved in Malaysian politics. And UK in the 90s was all about student activism. Ada yang ialah the different kinds of student activists, yang skema sedikit dia masuk kelab UMNO, ada yang more left wing. It was a time of great discussion about many things. You have to understand the 90s was a time of great confidence for Malaysia. We were growing fast, 8% per annum. We were seen not as a tiger of Southeast Asia, but certainly emerging tiger of Southeast Asia. And then 1998 happened. So 1998, to me, until today, it's one of the big, great ruptures of Malaysian politics. Kalau kita study Malaysian politics, especially Malay politics, there have been moments of rupture throughout history. And one of the greatest rupture within Malay politics is 1998. And unfortunately, that still reverberates until today. A lot of unsettled issues until today started with what happened in 1998. And I'm of course talking about what happened, the fallout between Dr. Mahathir and the current Prime Minister, Anwar, reformasi, and everything that followed from there. So for many of us, pada waktu itu, we had to make a decision. Who do we go with? So unfortunately, for many of us, it was not just about the cause, but it was also about the personality. Kita kena faham pada tahun 90-an ni, the cult of personality was very strong. Mahathir cultivated that cult of personality, whether he admits to it or not. Anwar certainly cultivated that cult of personality, and you can see that today. And I think that's something quite unhealthy in Malaysian politics, this ketaksuban yang sangat-sangat tebal, something that we need to address in the long term. But anyway, so there was a cult of personality. Do you choose Mahathir? Do you choose Anwar? And I chose Mahathir. I mean, I looked at what Anwar stood for. We all liked what reformasi was about, justice, against corruption, against cronyism. But for some of us at that point in time, we already had some suspicion that benda ni not quite for that really. It's for something else. And we can touch on that later. It was that, ostensibly, tapi di sebalik itu ada banyak agenda pribadi that we were not comfortable with. And I felt that yes, there were very legitimate concerns and criticisms against UMNO and Mahathir pada waktu itu. But I came from the perspective, and I still come from the perspective, of someone who is Malay nationalist. Walaupun I believe in a multicultural Malaysia, progressive Malaysia, but at my core, I'm still very much a Malay nationalist in a sense of Raza nationalism that is not exclusivist to other communities in Malaysia. So
So I thought, let's go in, and if there's anything that we can do it within UMNO. So I decided to choose, I chose UMNO, I chose Mahathir. And at that point in time, my mentor, the person who really brought me in the party, a lot of people think, of course, my father-in-law, but it wasn't. It was actually Hishamuddin. So I owe a debt of gratitude to Datuk Sri Hishamuddin, much in the same way that I brought Khairy into Pemuda UMNO once. But he left me. He left me for Sadiq. When he told me that he left me for Sadiq, I thought it was a joke. I thought I was half expecting you come to see me and say, Chief, don't worry, I'm just going to be a spy. And he actually left me for good. But anyway, so Hisham brought me in. Daripada I tak ada apa-apa, this guy, of course, studied overseas. He said, okay lah, you jadi exco Pemuda UMNO, and then I'm going to throw you into the deep end. Yes, of course, it helped that my father-in-law was in politics, but I always maintained that I made my own way through Pemuda UMNO. And anyway, by 2009, when I was out, I had to fend for myself. I had to fight what was perhaps one of the most hotly contested Ketua Pemuda contests in the history of UMNO Youth against Mukris and also against Ketoyo. Yeah. So and that was without sort of any payung. My father-in-law had retired. And then I remember I became Ketua Pemuda, then Najib took over as Prime Minister, and he called me and he said, normally when you're Ketua Pemuda, you would be appointed into cabinet. Sadiq was Ketua Armada, he was appointed as Menteri Pendidikan Sukan. Najib called me and said, I'm not going to appoint you in cabinet, spend some time trying to rebrand yourself. I looked at him with great irony. Asking me to rebrand myself. Okay, anyway. So for 5 years I was out. It was a tough time because when you're not picked in cabinet as a senior leader of the party, to Pemuda UMNO, everyone thinks you're out of favor with the leadership. You have to make your own way, and I was a backbencher. But it turns out it was some of the best years of my life, because I was allowed to say whatever I wanted in Parliament. And 2008 until 2013, Parliament was really, really active. It was a time when we lost our 2/3 majority. And I remember Kit Siang was there, Karpal Singh was there. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be a young backbencher going up against these great, great leaders. Almost every day, Kit Siang will school us, will put me in my place, say something very, very caustic, very, very sarcastic. But that's how we learn. And I proved myself, and then of course I became minister in 2013. In 2018, it all came crashing down, and Sadiq replaced me. So that's more or less how I got started. It's a story of ups and downs. I've been out a few times already now. And it's when you join politics, you imagine, especially then you join UMNO, great grand old party, you think that your career will be linear. And you think that, 5 years youth in sports, 5 years maybe a promotion, and then go for vice president, and then, be in contention one day for the top job. But I think one thing that we've all learned is that politics is not linear, and that the shifting loyalties, what we see today has resulted in a lot of people having to think twice about whether they want to go into politics because of the uncertainty. And I don't want all of you to feel that uncertainty is a disincentive for you to join politics. It's just the reality of politics today. There's no more, I join UMNO and I'm going to rise through the ranks if I put in the time and I'm a team player. Now there's so many things yang luar daripada kawalan. So you need to have absolutely strong perseverance to make sure that you last in this game if you want to be involved. I hope that helps.
Before we open up, because the topic is politics, policies and personal journey, I think the politics and policy side our audience have a bunch of questions to you. I just want to touch one more question on personal journey. So quite a few of these, some of here today were former candidates of Muda. So they went through the baptism of fire with, oh God, with the age of social media, leading to and whatnot. For someone who has been down and out, but then you rise up again, things like that, could you share with us some of your lowest moments and how did you prove yourself? I mean, I think that is quite relevant to quite a lot of us here.
So my electoral journey has been quite checkered as well. It's not been a bed of roses. I contested in 2008. There was a lot of attacks, fourth floor boys against Pakla, things like that. So there was a lot of concentration of attacks where I was contesting. They put this crazy guy, he's still crazy, Cik Ubat, to contest against me. He just hounded me daily. I still managed to win, but it was a very, very uncomfortable campaign for me because a lot of attacks were directed at me personally. The second time I contested in 2013, I won with a pretty big majority, and I felt vindicated because I had put in the work. I was a normal backbencher, and as a politician you feel good because bila you dah buat kerja betul-betul and then your majority goes up by 3-4 times, you feel that that's validation for you. And of course in 2018, although I won, our party lost. I felt very, very, I mean, I was a reduced majority, but I was one of the only ones who still won. I felt very affected by that election. I felt very, very affected by that election, and I still feel very, very affected by that election because for me, if there are regrets in life, and I don't want to say this because it's now and not then, it's perhaps how we handle the whole issue with Najib going into the 2018 elections. And I make no excuses for it because you have to accept it and live with it. You can't scrub the internet. You can't take videos of me and Najib with the Mama Star. It's going to be there forever, right? It's going to be there forever. But it doesn't mean that you're not affected by it. And of course, after that, I came back into government in circumstances which were, we can discuss that later, what happened in 2020 with the Sheraton move. And then 2022 happened where I lost. And I think 2018 was tougher for me than 2022.
Yeah.
Because 2018 was something which I felt, and I still feel, was a moral failing on my part. I failed myself. 2022, I had no moral failings. I mean, I was thrown out and I was, told to fend for myself. And I, with my hati yang terbuka, I accepted being sent to this place 3 days before penamaan calon, Sungai Buloh.
Presiden yang dicintai.
No, it wasn't. I mean, since we're being candid today, it wasn't even Zahid. Zahid didn't even offer me a seat.
Oh.
Yeah. So the story is that I contested for 3 terms in Rembau. 3 times I've now. So I was in Rembau. Relatively safe seat. I would have won again, I think. And so dalam politik muda pun sama juga. Setiap bahagian you have your ketua kan. You have ketua. So when it comes to calon ni, ketua tu dia expect akan tanding kat situ lah. Betul. But anyway, UMNO is a grand old party, so those are the expectations. So I wasn't ketua in Rembau for UMNO. I was Timbalan ketua. I had a ketua there. And he had never been into parliament before. He was Menteri Besar and he lost the state. Anyway, so he wanted to be in parliament because he became deputy president of the party. So he said, okay, I want the seat that you contested. I said, okay lah, take it. I mean, I'm a good boy, so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead. So I asked him, I said, can you help me because you're the deputy president of the party and you're the head of UMNO Negeri Sembilan. Boleh tak you cari kawasan untuk I? Kalau pilah ke mana benda, whatever lah. So he said, okay, I will help you. I'll help you, and I'll try and find you a seat which is relatively safe. Then a few weeks later, he called me and said, you know, why don't you go and talk to the guys in Kuala. So I said, I thought you were going to do it. I said, you know, why don't you talk first? So at that point, I knew that I was on my own. I knew that I was on my own. Nothing from HQ. So HQ, Zahid, etc. basically said nothing. So I thought to myself, if I don't do anything, then I'm definitely going to be without a seat. And it's not so difficult to imagine this, because you had people like Anwar Musa, Shahida, and all that who were dropped, completely dropped. So I thought to myself, I don't do anything, within 2 weeks, I'm going to be dropped. Ujola, I mean, I think if there are 2 people that I would like to thank for Sungai Buloh, it would be Tan Sri Omar, who was head of UMNO Selangor. He said, since the Islam doesn't want you, why don't you come to Selangor? So I said, okay, it's a suicide mission, but you know, I mean, at least he's offering me a seat. And then kat Selangor tu nak kena cari kursi lah. And then of course the UMNO seats are tough. So the other person I have to thank is the president of MIC, Tan Sri Vicky Iswaran. Because Sungai Buloh was the MIC seat. I went to him and I waited for him. He was praying in a temple in Sungai Siput. I waited for him for 4 hours. Then I got to see him. And then I said, hey Tan Sri, I said, Vicky, bro, I kata kalau you tanding MIC, tanding kat Sungai Buloh ni, dah 3 kali you kalah, you might as well let me contest. So he thought about it and said, okay lah, you contest. So that's how I got Sungai Buloh. My own, you know, I tried to make my own luck. And I had no regrets. I knew it was going to be tough, but it didn't end up the way I imagined it would end up. You know, we came close. It was 26,000. We brought it down to 2,600. Of course, not close enough. So I'm happy that I went to Sungai Buloh. I have no regrets about that.
All right, so there you heard on it. Well, now Sungai Buloh has an impressive MP. You know.
Look, now Sungai Buloh is a marginal seat.
Yes, yes.
In the state elections, Faijaras fell to PM. I'm not saying it was because of me, but I'm sure the general election rocked Sungai Buloh in the sense that, you know, voters there could imagine somebody other than Age.
That's the thing. All right, folks. Pretty sure all of you have any questions. But before we open the floor, just want to remind you, let's keep it brief. Let's keep it straightforward. Questions, if you have any thoughts or comments, please do, but keep it brief, yeah, because I think a bunch of us want to have questions. Yuki has the mic over there. Where's the other mic? Okay, tak apa, Yuki will walk around. You can run a bit. Okay, folks, who want to start first? Oh, wow. Just to tell you, Rob only recently got his mic card. See, so he was a stateless person. He born and bred and grew up in Sabah through Malaysia, but had to fight tooth and nail for his kewarganegaraan. So congratulations, yeah.
Thank you.
Terima kasih sudi hadir dalam program muda. Saya Wong Kui Hui, asal daripada Keningau, Sabah, dan saya salah seorang ahli eksekutif muda di Muda Singapura. My question is, seperti yang Gadil update tadi, former status. Pada tahun lepas, Kerajaan Madani telah pun mencadangkan pindaan perlembagaan persekutuan berhubung kewarganegaraan yang bersifat regresif dan tidak bersifat kemanusiaan. Dan saya mau bertanya di sini, kenapa DKS tidak pernah membincangkan pasal isu ini? Isu ini sangat penting.
Soalan pertama.
Apa polisi, Wan?
It's a tough night, I see.
Oh, it's okay. Saya rasa mungkin bukanlah kita tak pernah bincang, tapi mungkin kita bincang sepintas lalu. I've discussed dengan Charil before this issue, but you're right. It deserves a much deeper discussion of the stateless amendments. Masa saya dalam kabinet Jemaah Menteri, okay, one thing that I want to caveat sebelum kita discuss further is a lot of people always ask apa yang dibuat masa menteri. But I think it's not an excuse but more explanation is that dalam mesyuarat Jemaah Menteri, we can say what we want, but at the end of the day, it's collective decision making. So just because keputusan dalam Jemaah Menteri pada waktu itu bukanlah keputusan yang mencerminkan pandangan kita sekarang ni, it doesn't mean that we didn't say anything when we were in cabinet. I think Sadiq would have the same experience. But it wasn't for us to go out of the cabinet to say that, oh, saya tak setuju dengan pendirian ni. Otherwise you have to resign, because it's collective responsibility. But I think it's fair that after the passage of time, you can say, sewaktu saya dalam 5 menteri, saya ada cadangkan beberapa perkara. One of the things that I was uncomfortable with was this discussion, utamanya of children who are born to Malaysian mothers. I never understood. Saya sampai hari ini tak faham apa pendirian Kementerian Dalam Negeri daripada hari itu sampai ke hari ini yang menidakkan anak-anak yang dilahirkan kepada ibu warga negara Malaysia itu dapat. I remember listening to Datuk Seri Hamzah trying to explain this, dan saya tak boleh faham. Sebab bagi saya, you can give whatever excuse you want, and the excuse they gave was normally quite sexist lah. Oh, wanita dia datang, lepas tu dia akan pergi, dia tak akan menetap di Malaysia, whatever, I don't know, really lame excuse. And I remember what really upset me dalam cabinet was when this cabinet paper came in untuk kita bagi kewarganegaraan kepada seorang pemain bola sepak. And I said to myself, okay lah, kalau dia ni muda lagi, katalah 23 tahun, ada banyak lagi masa untuk main untuk Malaysia, tak apalah. Dia ni 36 tahun dah. Dia 36 tahun. Kenapa kita nak bagi dia kewarganegaraan? Dia pun tak layak main untuk national team. So I felt that it was just a huge insult to those who dah lama minta kewarganegaraan, tak dapat. Tapi dalam kes-kes macam tu tak ada masalah. Of course, I won't tell you what the reason was. You can sort of guess why that happened. Timbul dia memang sangat-sangat tebal lah. But to me, that's wrong. That's just absolutely wrong. And I said this is wrong. Of course, because kabel dia besar, semua diam lah, kata tak apalah, kabel besar, kita paksa bagi semua ni. But I do believe that this is something that can be fixed. It's not something that cannot be fixed. Masalah dia biasanya kadang-kadang immigration dengan Kementerian Dalam Negeri, dia melihat isu kewarganegaraan ni daripada sudut keselamatan. That's wrong. Okay, kita faham lah keselamatan, kita faham tak nak dia. Sabah, you know how many people dapat ICU dulu kat Sabah dan sebagainya. Itu pun isu keselamatan juga. Tapi bila dia tak konsisten dan akhirnya ada kes-kes macam your case, itu tak dapat. Ada kes mana mak dia adalah warga negara Malaysia. My own brother-in-law took him more than 20 years untuk dapat kewarganegaraan Malaysia. Anak dia dah besar dah. My own flesh and blood, nephew and niece. Itu pun tak dapat. Tapi yalah, dalam kes-kes tertentu terus dapat PR. Sekarang ni nak memudahkan untuk golongan-golongan tertentu. So I think there has to be some consistency on this. But I will do justice to your discussion.
Betul yang kita tak faham. Kalau syurga bawah tapak kaki ibu, kewarganegaraan tak boleh. Doesn't make sense. Okay, siapa lagi yang sebelah Wong? Okay. Sorry, dia angkat dulu bro. Bukan sebab dia kroni Wong
Dia pakai baju Melayu.
Melayu. My hopes.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Fayad. I'm from Muda Gambut, and I'd like to ask you about something about ideology per se. You have described yourself as both a nationalist and progressive at times, and at certain times also as a centrist as well. Now, as we all know, Malaysia is quite is a bit of an understatement. Malaysia is very polarized. Whether it comes to racial relations, cultural relations, or even religious relations, we are pretty much divided. So, there's two questions for me. One, what does those words mean to you? And second, what is your stance regarding secularism, religion, and state? Thank you.
So, thank you for the question. So, for instance, bila saya cakap saya ni nasionalis Melayu, saya percaya kepada pemerkasaan orang Melayu. Masuklah natives of Sabah dan Sarawak. Sebab bagi saya, kalau kita tak selesaikan masalah ini, dia akan sentiasa menjadi the central problem of race relations and of the Malay people in this country. Cara bagaimana kita nak selesaikan dia, that's what we have to discuss. Adakah kita percaya kepada kita nak bagi talian hayat selama-lamanya? Adakah kita nak fokus kepada pendidikan, latihan, pemerkasaan dari segi ekonomi dan sebagainya? I believe that as long as you don't solve the Malay dilemma, you cannot resolve the bigger question of Malaysia. That's why I believe that this question has to be solved. Tetapi janganlah kita mendekati masalah ini dengan cara di mana we don't have any concern about all the other communities. So if you ask me, for instance, about my stand on education, I do believe that in an ideal situation, we should all go to the same school. But it's something that has this train has long left the station. To remake the social contract today is very difficult. So we have to celebrate the different streams that we have. But at the same time, what does centrism mean? It means that mana boleh kita promote sekolah kebangsaan sebagai the choice. And if you have limited resources, then most of your resources should go towards sekolah kebangsaan to make sure that it is worthy of parents to choose their children to go to sekolah kebangsaan, whether they are Malay, whether they are Kadazan, whether they are Indian, whether they are of any ethnicity. So itu pendekatan yang practical, yang centris. Pada masa yang sama, you protect what we feel is the national identity, which is within sekolah kebangsaan. But itu tak menidakkan sekolah jenis kebangsaan. Yeah, I think there will always be a place for vernacular education in Malaysia. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that what you deliver as the government is the choice that parents will automatically say, I have trust in sekolah kebangsaan. Sebab dia boleh belajar Mandarin di situ, dia boleh belajar Tamil di situ, tak ada encroachment. If they're non-Muslim, tak ada encroachment kepada their own beliefs. They feel comfortable. There's always some complaint that sekolah kebangsaan punya identity ni tak berapa friendly kepada non-Muslim. Some people say that, so that's not the case. So I do believe that these are not contradictory stands, positions to take. I do believe very strongly that selagi kita tak selesaikan masalah dilema ekonomi Melayu ni, selagi itulah there will be people who can exploit the fears of the Malays. So kalau you tengok hari ni, you can see that. I mean, unfortunately, I have friends who are in Pakatan Nasional, tapi they are very light on policy, but very heavy on identity politics. Why? Because it's very easy to exploit. Melayu masih lagi miskin, Melayu masih lagi mundur, Melayu masih lagi macam ni. So, to me, kalau selagi kita tak selesaikan benda ni, as much as possible, of course it can't be perfect, but as much as possible. So, the inequalities are not glaring, so that there is not a color of inequality. Kalau kita tengok inequality pada hari ni, there is a certain color to it, Malays, Indians especially. I mean, you can't deny this. There are structural issues here. So, I believe that dari segi pemerkasaan Melayu itu sangat penting. That's why I still identify myself as a Malay nationalist. Your question about secularism, negara kita is not a secular country in the sense of a European secular country. Now I'll explain what I mean by that. In Europe it's very clear where there's a division between church and state. If you go to France, which many people will identify as a classic secular country, in the French census, bila dia buat bancian dekat France, they're not even allowed to ask you your religion, because to be French is indivisible. Maknanya there's only one French identity. There's no French Christian, there's no French Muslims, which we know is BS anyway. France has some of the worst integration in the world. But anyway, they pretend that that's secularism. So that's secularism as defined in Europe. But in our case, terang-terang, our constitution says, and this was how the founders of our country framed it, is Islam is the religion of the federation. Not the official religion, but the religion of the federation. So macam mana pun, we are not a secular state. When you have religion of the federation, you allow for the state to have a role in developing the religion of Islam. Of course, we have another article that says you have freedom to profess your religion if you're non-Muslim lah. Kalau Muslim ada sekatan dan sebagainya. So what we have to do is to make sure that yes, kita dapat satisfy the demands of Muslims in this country for state intervention. What is state intervention? State intervention is untuk memastikan bahawa tak ada orang yang hina agama Islam, untuk memastikan bahawa there's pendidikan Islam, untuk memastikan bahawa ada pentadbiran agama Islam dari segi syariah, undang-undang syariah dan sebagainya yang tersusun. But it does not encroach into non-Muslims, and it doesn't encroach into things which are not under the religious list of the constitution. So for instance, criminal law, we've discussed this at length. Criminal law, kita dah setuju dah. Criminal law ni adalah under civil, not under Sharia. So the demarcation is there. It will continuously be something that we have to push, pull, because as the country develops, we cannot deny. I would say that kalau kita nak cakap Malaysia ni has become more religiously conscious, that's true. You know, you can look at pictures from the 80s and compare them to today. Even the outward manifestation of Muslims are different in Malaysia. Tapi kita tak boleh salahkan orang Melayu sekarang, because they will say that, you know, I'm trying to be more conscious, I'm trying to be more observant, I'm trying to be more, I'm trying to observe the ritual more. So we have to make sure that that doesn't get in the way of the rights of others, and it doesn't get in the way of things which we feel we can live with. I think most people, let's give a simple example now, okay? I mean, when we were in the government after the Sheraton move, ramai yang tanya what was it like being in government with PAS? Did PAS, you know, talk about hudud? Did they talk about 355? Did they talk about concerts all the time? And I can tell you, my hand to heart is that they never once mentioned it. They never once mentioned it. Hanya sekali aja after we started opening up the economy when COVID was coming down, and then we started having concerts. It was almost a very timid intervention by Ustaz Idris Ahmad, the religious minister. Dia cakap, kalau boleh, jangan banyak konsert boleh tak? So I was like, wow. You know, I half expected them to say no more concerts and things like that. So I think they also, I mean, I'm not making excuses for PAS. The PAS pun faham. They understand. But at the ground, of course, they have to let their guys, you know, release tension lah. So that's why you have Pemuda PAS talking about concerts and things like that. So I believe that Malaysia is always a fine balance. It's not one way or the other. Kalau ada yang kata kat saya Malaysia is a secular state, I can challenge and say I disagree with you 100%. If somebody comes to me and says Malaysia should be a theocracy, should be a religious state, saya kata tak boleh. Memang tak boleh. Unless you want to change the federal constitution. And there are too many safeguards to make sure that the federal constitution cannot be altered in fundamental ways. So, sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's
Let's go behind that. Oh, sorry. We'll go there and we'll go this side. So I think I'll go by regions. So we'll go on.
Yes. Hello. Asno. Samba. Just a simple question. Being a seasoned politician, okay, how do you manage your stress? And I'm a Muslim.
Yeah. So, I suffered from very, very poor health during the pandemic because saya ni bila saya buat kerja, saya buat sungguh-sungguh. And unfortunately, at that time, I had a very, very difficult job during the pandemic. And susah untuk saya to not take things personally. I always say, dalam politik, you have to have a thick skin, but you also have to have a thin skin. What do I mean by that? Thick skin ni, you kena resilient lah. So kalau orang bagi macam-macam pun, you have that resilience to withstand it. But you must also have a thin skin, because if you don't have thin skin, you don't have empathy. So I say politician has to have a thick skin to withstand the attacks, but they have to have a thin skin. So dia boleh faham lah orang lain. Kalau you thick skin, you tak faham. Sometimes that thin skin gets you into trouble, because I took a lot of things to heart. You know, I had to handle the vaccination and getting us out of COVID and things like that. And dalam keadaan tu, everyone has something to say to me every day. Even my own family. And I wanted to do it well because it was life and death. I wanted to do well because saya jenis bila saya buat sesuatu, saya nak buat bersungguh-sungguh. And I went through a very, very tough phase of that mental health and physical health. And I didn't know how to manage the stress. After the elections, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, if I continue like this, I'm not going to live very long. So now I try to manage the stress by by trying to stay active. So a lot of people, the New Resolution starts January the 1st. Mine started September the 20th last year. So I lost almost 15 kilograms. Because I mean, I was just sick and tired of being fat. I was sorry. I completely said that without irony. I was sick and tired of being unhealthy. I said to myself, I don't want to, that's a poor choice of words. I didn't want to be unhealthy. So I said I have to do something. Secondly, that was for my physical health. Secondly, I had to find some anchor for my mental and spiritual health. And a lot of people find it in different ways. I'm finding it through prayer. Not to say I didn't pray before, but I think the quality of your prayer changes. That's what I noticed. Because mungkin sebelum ni kita buat solat waktu pun kadang-kadang, I mean, let's be honest lah, sometimes you just want to because you need to do it, right? So I try to be in the moment. So if you want to be present with somebody, you want to be present with God, then that's your time to be present with God. Second. Third is to build better personal relationships. I felt that for so long in politics, kita punya relationship transactional now. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? So I thought to myself, this is a good time because I'm a nobody now. So I cannot give anybody anything. So this is the time where I can build meaningful relationships. So, people who I didn't have much time for before, I started investing time in that, like Sadiq. Because, I feel that life is too short for you to hold grudges or continue with your bias and things like that. So those three things. I think, staying active physically, be present with God when you have your time with God. And also to really build and invest in relationships. Because I thought to myself, at the end of the day, after 20 years in politics, I can count on my hands the number of true friends in politics. So why don't you just invest in those true friends in politics, as opposed to trying to please so many people?
Alright, just now you see some of your worst stress was during COVID. A bit sidetracked, what was your favorite COVID conspiracy which you find the funniest?
I mean, the conspiracies were vast, and today we can laugh it off. But there are still people who hold a grudge against me. There are people who say that the vaccines contain microchips,
5G.
5G.
Coverage.
I mean, do you really think that I want to know where you're going? They question procurement and things like that. Sadiq knows how many times we went to PAC. I brought the contracts. I showed how much we paid. Until today, nothing against me. So alhamdulillah, I feel not vindicated. It's not about being vindicated, but at least tak adalah benda-benda yang orang cakap yang proven to be true.
True.
But what saddens me the most, I know, is not the wild conspiracies, but those perfectly rational people, yang because they cannot explain something, they blamed it on the vaccine. So we had 3 committees. So in case you had vaccine injury, we had 3 committees to check what in medical terms is causality. Maknanya the vaccine caused it. We ended up paying off some people because there was some indication that the vaccine had caused inflammation and things like that. So kita memang ada. And I answered, I think in Parliament, how we paid for it and that it was something that was quite transparent. But until today, there are many people who, when sekarang ni banyak kes orang muda sakit jantung, pass away and things like that, I baca komen tu lah, oh ini vaksin lah.
Bukan rokok. Rokok tak buat vaksin.
Rokok, it's not high cholesterol, it's not hypertension, it's vaccine.
Dia tak vaksin santam.
What upset me one day was when a perfectly rational family member of mine wrote to me and said that my husband has been diagnosed with cancer and it's because of your vaccine. And I asked her, I said, Kak, you know, who told you this? And she said, oh, you know, the doctor mentioned it in passing. I mean, to the extent where doctors, they cannot explain it, so they thought, oh, maybe vaccine are good, you know? And I felt very sad because I don't mind that crazy people talking about 5G and all that. Itu memang ada lah. Until today they're there. But when rational people, because they're so desperate for an answer, dia nak cari answer juga, and dia dah kebuntuan, so they just said, you know, it's the vaccine. Of course, for whatever shortcomings during my time as the minister, I apologize, but I never ever set off trying to hurt anyone. You know, I went into that negotiations with Pfizer, all these other companies, with the best available advice and information to get the country out. So, yalah, satu lagi nanti I have to answer to God. That will be my reckoning lah.
Alright, wait, any ladies, I think is all. Ada tak? Okay lah, the one at the back there. How many questions do you have? One. Maybe I'll do one over here and one in front of you. So, because then we'll go ahead.
Hi everyone. Sir, I just want to have one simple question. If you have one thing that you would do it correctly, what would that be?
And hold on, keep that just now in front of you. Yuki.
Hi, my name is Emmeline and I'm from America, which is a youth leadership program by Model. My question is basic actually. What are your beliefs on what good leadership looks like and what shape this belief? That's all.
I think the question at the back. As I said earlier, the thing that I struggle with the most, and of course it's back in the news today and yesterday, is my very complex relationship with Datuk Sri Najib. I felt that at some point, and I think, you know, Sadiq and I, we had our differences then, and I think in that particular case, he was on the right side of history. At some point, we just let it go. There were those of us in cabinet who felt quite strongly against what was happening. It led to, of course, Mahidin being sacked from cabinet, Shafi was sacked from cabinet. And even after that, there were at least 3 or 4 of us who continued to ask Najib for him to explain. But kita tak puas hati. You know, I mean, now we all know what happened. And it came to a point where dia cakap kita, no, this one you have to just leave it to me to settle. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And at that point in time, you have to make a decision. Do you leave, or do you just let it go? So I think those of us who made the decision to just let it go, that's something that we will always regret. I mean, I don't know what would have happened, you know, whether I would have been sacked from the party, One could argue that I should have just done it then, I would have been sacked later anyway. But, yeah, you know, the job takes over. I remember once we let it go, then the job took over because I was preparing for the SEA Games. You know, it wasn't that I wasn't thinking about Najib and Jolo, but you know, Sebo and the SEA Games, so we were trying to channel our energy somewhere else. Maybe it was my own copium saying that, okay lah, I'm just going to focus on the SEA Games and not think about this thing anymore. And that's what happens in life. You just look away and you just get on with it. You know, it became a moral failing not just because we lost, but because of what transpired after that. What I thought instinctively was true, which was that he made a lot of mistakes in that crucial 3-4 years when MVP happened. So that will always be my big regret. I mean, I don't know how I would have done it differently, but since you ask, that will always be something that I have to live with. What does leadership look like? Good leadership look like? I don't know. This is a tough question. I would like to think that good leadership is managing people well. I think if you can't manage people well, you can't be an effective leader. Wherever I've been to in government, whether it is Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, later Ministry of Health, I felt that the most important thing that a leader can do is to try to make sure that everyone that they work with accepts their vision. Not forced to accept, but really accepts their vision. That's when I felt that things really moved. Government moves when your officers, people who are working with you, they trust in your vision, they understand that vision. Dan dia tak terpaksa buat benda tu sebab arahan daripada menteri. I don't know if Sadiq felt that as well. I felt that if you were able to communicate your vision well, bring them along with you, and not force them to come with you, then you would become a good leader. I tried to do that in COVID. I'm not saying that I succeeded, but I said to my ministry, I said, you know, this is where we want to go. No more lockdowns. I want to make sure that we're out by the first quarter of 2022, and that's how we brought people along with us. So I do believe that, of course, there are many traits, you know, perseverance, vision, all that kind of stuff. But if you can't win people over, then you're not going to be a good leader. And this is self-criticism. I think the reason I failed in UMNO is because in government, I tried to be the person to bring everyone with me, win over them, and make sure that they believed in the process, and trusted the process. But I think maybe Zaidel at some point in time in UMNO, I tried to be a bit too much of a maverick, tried to do things on my own. And when that happened, of course, then people are not going to be with you. So my own self-criticism, I mean, if I'm allowed that, within UMNO, was to not build a broad enough coalition of people who would be with me. And when the time came for them to sack me from UMNO, everyone just moved on with their lives. So I felt that that was an indictment of my own leadership within UMNO, that I didn't build a broad enough coalition for people to want to make a difference when I wanted to make sure that there was a change within the party.
There's a former UMNO member who campaigned vehemently for him to be the president. Let's not go there, because if I vent out about what I really think was wrong, it will be a true long fight. But I guess that's part of your self-reflection. Although I think it's more than. All right, we have a bunch. This young man has. I'll take 2 or 3 in one go. How about that, right? So I'll start with you, sir.
So you experienced firsthand the power.
No. Okay, you have a loud voice.
Okay, I think I'll just.
Oh, they want to hear. Oh, yeah, sure. Hey.
Hello. So KJ, you experienced firsthand the power of government and the methods of its operations. So as you look back upon your career in public service, has your experience as a minister and MP matched your expectations?
You know what, I'll let you answer this one, it's quite interesting.
So, when I was much younger, I felt that government operates at the flick of a switch. So if you're a minister, you flick the switch, then things will happen. But coming back to what I said earlier just now, it can happen. But when you are unable to convince the government machinery, then it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen well. I found that things happen the best when everyone understood and was on the same page. So I would spend a lot of time sitting down with my officers and explain where I want to go with this, why we're doing this. I felt that a lot of ministers, they don't explain to people why they want to do something, and they just expect people to do so. I'll give you a very recent example. I don't think the government communications for Padu is good enough, because they're not explaining why they want to do this. Why? They'll explain later, when everything just, screwed up the first day. Then they started explaining why they wanted to do it. The why is very important. I believe if you explain the why, then people will be a bit more forgiving of shortcomings. People will say, okay, it's the first day, teething problems, technical problems, get over it. So I felt that, and as a minister, the other thing is, it's not to underestimate people's thinking ability, but you cannot assume that the man on the street understands the problem the way that you understand the problem. If there was one criticism that I have again about the whole Padu process, is that there was an assumption that people knew exactly what they wanted to do. People knew instinctively that Paduni is a grand database where everyone understands what it was used for. That's why when we did the vaccination process, I said to people, kalau kita dalam Kementerian Kesihatan, kita tahulah kena ada vaksin supaya kita melindungi diri kita. But you imagine somebody, this is about having a thin skin, yang datang daripada kampung, yang, the whole journey is already daunting. Pergi ke PPV, turun kat PPV, nak kena suntik ni. It's so daunting that you have to explain why they must do it. We spend a lot of time explaining why nak kena buat ni. Kalau tak buat benda ni, kita tak selamat. Kita mungkin kalau dapat COVID, masuk hospital ataupun meninggal dunia. So you really have to reduce everything to first principles. And kadang-kadang bila kita dalam politik, as an MP, as a minister, menteri, governor, we take this for granted. Kita ingat, orang dah tahu dah. Kita cakap, kita buat. And I think that's always the biggest shortcoming in a politician. When you assume and you gaslight people to say that, kenapa ini bodoh sangat? Tak tahu. Why are you complaining about Anu? Why are you complaining about the database? Oh, you dah jadi terpaling software engineer. Tak boleh kan macam tu. No, I mean you have to have the humility to be able to explain things in first principle and not to have that assumption that there's something wrong with the public and not something wrong with you. So I think that was my experience.
So yeah, the communications part of Padu really.
And okay, let me just give you another example. This is, I'm talking about Sadiq's mentor.
Which one?
and Sadiq can correct me if I'm wrong. But the true genius of Dr. Mahathir, and I've been watching this guy since the 80s, since I was a student in politics, was that he never assumed anything about what the public knew or didn't know. He would explain in the easiest way, and he would repeat himself many times, again and again and again. And I used to watch him thinking, kenapa dia cakap benda yang sama, dia berulang benda yang sama? And then he says it in a very simple way. And that's when I was reminded at university, when my professor told me that the smartest person is actually somebody who can explain very difficult concept in the easiest and quickest way possible. And that was the genius of Mahathir as a political communicator. I think the current Prime Minister It's his strength and his weakness. His strength is that he's able to elevate the rhetoric to levels of stratospheric heights with words that people don't understand. And that's also the weakness, because at the end of the day, if nobody's going to understand you, then what's the point? So I think basically political communication, of course, Anwar is one of the top orators, not just of his generation, but of all generations. But in terms of effectiveness of storytelling, Mahathir had that in excess.
Okay, Jabut, okay, the Grody. I'll give this young man whose name. And then, how about this? How many questions do you have? One? Okay, then I'll take one from Damansara. But before that, okay, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, kita punya sesi ini ditajuk oleh Cafe Overtime. Cafe Overtime.
Nice coffee.
Yeah, untuk pengetahuan, if you have any events that you want to do, okay, owner of Cafe Overtime there, Ika, Ismail, okay. So if you want to do any event, and especially if you're a Muda member, they have a soft spot for Muda. So dia akan bagi for free, but please buy their coffee, and their Tom Yum pasta is amazingly good. Post it on your Instagram and Twitter, #overtime. Good time and overtime. The best World Cup is the best in overtime. Okay, sorry, young man, your question.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Nama saya Alif. Saya berasal daripada Ceras, Kuala Lumpur, dan bekas nyokong UMNO. Tak macam ini.
Sama.
And currently saya adalah peserta program Broker Banker. Saya actually ada dua soalan, tapi saya nak tanya yang pertama dulu. What is your view about politik Islam? Dan yang kedua, ketika kempen PR15, KJ pernah kata yang one day you will be the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Are you still dreaming about that? Thank you.
I hope it's the second one.
Saya jawab soalan pertama dulu. So politik Islam ni bukan hanya di Malaysia, tapi satu gerakan di peringkat dunia. Kalau kita tengok asal usul politik Islam ni pada 70-an dengan kebangkitan Muslim Brotherhood yang masih lagi ada hari ini. But clearly, you have to ask yourself, kenapa politik Islam ini masih lagi diterima? Sebab kalau kita kata, oh, ini semua yang tunggang agama, this is the usual criticism that we have against political Islam, oh, tunggang agama. But they resonate with so many people. Macam contoh PAS. Bukan nak kata dia tak ada langsung perbahasan tentang polisi di Dewan Rakyat, but most people admit that's not their strength. Their strength is lebih kepada pentadbiran untuk political Islam, ke arah membangun bersama dengan Islam. So you have to ask, what is it that they are offering in terms of a vision yang orang politik lain tak boleh? You know, PHPN have spent the last 1 year desperately trying to penetrate the Malay ground. Tapi kalau saya tanya you hari ni, sama ada you rasa within the last 1 year they made any inroads into the Malay ground? I don't think so. In fact, pilihan raya negeri yang last, 80% of the Malays in Selangor sokong Perikatan Nasional. That's why kerusi macam Bajaras boleh jatuh dekat Sungai Buloh. So, instead of blaming, kata dia orang ni penunggang agama, walaupun ask what is it that walaupun ni kuat sangat sampai dia boleh dapat sokongan daripada orang Melayu. Then maybe ask yourself, maybe bila kita cakap soal integrity sebagai contoh, bila dia cakap yalah dia tunggang agama, tapi at least dia tak adalah orang yang bermasalah di kalangan kepimpinan dia. But you don't even want to have the humility to ask that question. Macam hari ni, apa dia orang kata, oh, kerjasama PH dengan BN ni biarlah cium mulut sampai next election. without any awareness of the fact that people are actually rejecting you, not so much because dia suka kepada penunggang agama ni, sebab at least they're not saying something that they are completely not doing. Itu masalah dia. So a lot of people miss the point. Yes, ada yang suka kepada PN dengan PAS sebab agama. 30%, dulu lagi 30%. Mana-mana pun dekat Malaysia dia sokong PAS sebab dia memang believe in PAS punya vision. They believe in membangun bersama dengan Islam. Tapi the rest of the 30% of the Malays now, or 50% of the Malays now, yang sanggup bagi sokongan tadi, is not so much about that. That's why bila timbul polemik green wave, I disagree. I kata green wave ni seolah-olah orang Melayu ni tak fikir benda lain, fikir pasal agama je, dan dia sokong PAS dengan PN pasal agama saja. No, they have a big problem because bila you cakap tentang tata kelola, but at the same time you have made the biggest compromises ever in the history of Malaysia. Oh, there's something wrong there. There's something wrong there, and there's only so much you can excuse. There's only so much that supporters. There's only so much that PH supporters can say. Oh no. Ini semua real politik. To me, takkan you dah sell your soul because of real politics. I mean, that's bullshit. So, I feel, I know you guys get it back from the PH supporters.
Yes.
But on this, I'm with you. Hari ni, kalau hari ni you tengok hari ni dalam dia punya platform, they have one of the media social media platform memang darul PH Islam. I mean the sort of moral gymnastics, not mental gymnastics, moral gymnastics that they are performing today to justify whatever has taken place over the last 24 hours is crazy. It's just crazy. So to me, I think it is not just about political Islam. The fundamental issue ni orang tak bodoh lah. What they can see. Sorry, what's the second question? Oh, Prime Minister. Sorry.
It's a good one.
I mean, everyone has cita-cita lah, kan? Everyone has. And I would like to be able to serve one day as Prime Minister of this country. But you have to earn it. You have to win an election. I'm very, very far from it now. I can't see a path there, but
Jangan paksa sangat. Sabar.
But the only thing I will say is this. After the last election, and this is more about personal growth, I've reconciled with myself. It's okay if it doesn't happen. It's okay if it doesn't happen. No, I mean, this is all about mental health management. It's okay. I think I don't want to be that person that you wanted it so much that you were willing to do anything to get it. I think that's. I'm not referring to anyone in particular.
No, just to be careful.
Just to be careful.
We don't want Twitter to blow up. But no, it's okay. I mean, if anything, they'll just blame you to be a Mahathir Juju, like all the time. Okay, Sadiq, they're fawning over him more than you ever have. Today. Okay, yes, I'll go and Tanusha and you
Tanusha.
Okay, first Abul dulu. Sorry bukan ni. Abul dah angkat kat di belakang dia.
Thanks, hi, Abul. So, I've been watching your political career for a while, in 37. So, I didn't really like you when you were a politician. But when you're in close to I can see that you are much more happier and don't you think that your contribution dalam close kejap, like explaining things to people, are like much more important compared to macam what you did before? And I mean like, I mean the contribution of macam, because people, Malaysia is a bit macam information tak sampai ke orang, and Khairy Kejap has been like macam the central point of like where we go to, where we want to know what's going on actually. So that is one thing, that one question lah. The other question I wanted to ask was kalau you nak join Perdana Menteri balik, ada. I dengar ketua parlimen dah masalah quite flexible.
Okay, Tanusha. So they really don't hide their intentions. I mean, okay, Tanusha.
Hello, hi, my name is Tanusha. Hello, guys. Okay, my question is very generic, but I think this is something that everyone wants to know themselves. What next for KJ? I mean, we know Keluar Sekejap and all that, but politically, what is next for KJ?
So, abang soalan tadi, Cheryl and I have, we speak about this, and sometimes we share with Sadiq also whether we want to go back to politics or not. Because, we are much happier people now. I'm much happier in my life. But some reason this panggilan pulau is very strong. Yeah, it keeps on calling you. And I don't know how to say it, but bila you dah ada DNA politik, susah tau. And then especially when you wake up on some days, and then you think, mungkin bodoh gila. I mean, again, not specific lah, but
Not specific.
it's not just me. A lot of you have the same thought as well. Yes. And that's not to say that I'm better, but it's that
Some you are far better.
yeah. So you can never completely go away from it. Yes. And I'd like to think that Keluar Sekejap is exactly that, Keluar Sekejap. But, and to answer Tanusha's question, what's the way back in? What's the way back in? I mean, I would say here openly that my most natural home in politics is the home that kicked me out. I didn't leave. I was sacked from UMNO. Tapi, of course, a lot of things have happened in the last 1 year. And like anyone else, I'm looking around. I'm looking around.
Not looking at you.
Sadiq has spoken. I didn't say no. But at the same time, it's a serious decision. I don't want to make it light. True. I don't want to make it light. Lagipun, I think there's 3-4 more years before the election. It's time for us to all think about how to do this. But can I just say something about Muda? And I told Sadiq this, I think before the Pilihan Raya. I said that Sadiq, things will get worse before it gets better. Because the way that our politics is structured, that force is susah. But it will get better. I mean, Imran Khan took a bad example because he's been sent to jail for this. But anyway, it took him 20 years. 20 years. So I'm not saying that it will take you all 20 years. But
you have 20 years.
yeah, you have time on your side. I told Sadiq, I said you have time on your side. You have time on your side to play the long game. So as long as you are perseverant, you can play the long game. Because I believe that in politics, if you play the long game, you will eventually win. And I'll tell you which party plays the long game. Muda, you start the long game now. Or which party do you think plays the long game and eventually will win? 100% us. 100% us. I said this back in the 90s. These guys are not after the next election. They can play the long game because they're akhirat. Their time frame is not measured in 5 to 10 years. Their time frame is eternity, So, if your time frame is eternity, your space-time dimension is completely different. It doesn't matter. They're not there anymore. Dia dah meninggal pun tak apa. Because akhirnya Islam will win. So you have to have that same conviction. I'm not trying to make you guys fast, but at least that same conviction that one day you guys will prevail.
Just to interject, because most of you are Ketua Parlimen Selangor dengan KL, you are doing really hard selling right now. But before you start anything, we first must fix our party. We must grow it, push membership drive. Ketua Parlimen tolong buat program pun kadang-kadang mula, please. Then you start talking about recruiting or getting someone big into the party. First, you got to fix your roots. Okay, go. Alright, questions. Young lady over there. And if you don't guys don't mind, I'll give AB and then I'll go back to behind. Is it okay? Alright.
Hello KJ, my name is Asma. I'm an international student from Morocco studying here in University Malaya. I actually came to Malaysia after you were appointed as the health minister. So I've been following the local politics ever since. You talked about from 1998, Malaysian politics drifted apart because of personality politics. Do you think part of the issue is that Malaysia does not have a proper political identity that they can base on, instead of just basing on whatever happened in the world, like trying to be kind of following the Western in international relations or whatever movement that pops up. Maybe like there should be a Malaysian political identity, something like what was started in Indonesia after the independence. Do you think that maybe would be the solution to all these differences here? And the second question is about the GEG. What's your thoughts and your disappointment after you left the government? Thank you.
The second question, my disappointment with GEG is that Sadiq agreed to it.
Can you repeat that?
That's one thing that I was upset with him about. I mean,
You're right about
but I felt that we had a window of opportunity to pass it at the last parliament. Then the then Prime Minister Ismail Sabri told me that he was going to dissolve Parliament the next day. So I pulled the bill. I think we should have just passed the bill anyway, because we managed to get consensus at the last day. But anyway, hopefully one day it can happen. I don't necessarily agree that Malaysia doesn't have its political identity. I think we do. But I think the reason why, one of the big reasons why Malaysian politics has been captured by personality is because our politics is very feudal in nature. And the feudal politics builds loyalty to individuals and not loyalty to ideology or cause. And I was very careful about not wanting to perpetuate that feudal politics. Because I think if you have feudal politics, then you can excuse just about anything as long as you support the person. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. So, for instance, you take today, the government of the day, the supporters of the government of today can excuse just about anything as long as the person of their choice is Prime Minister. Which I think is fundamentally wrong. Of course, they'll claim that they are, there's internal dissent, they talk when they're unhappy, they're not satisfied, but I don't think that that's the case. And I really do believe that new political platforms like Muda must move away from this feudalism. One of the reasons, for instance, that I never was comfortable with trappings of power was I did not want to inadvertently encourage this amongst young politicians. Sadiq and I are the same. We became ministers, but we are not Dato' whatever benda. I think Sadiq could have easily become a Dato', but he's not. Because I think that's his way of saying that we don't want to cement this view that you're elevated just because you are a political leader. There's something wrong there. So I hope that young people who go into politics will understand that these trappings of power, they're temporary. What's important is your commitment. What's important is your commitment to the cause, not you, and not you as a person or individual.
Okay, so I'll take one in front of here, and this young man over here. Then I'll go at the back. If I miss, I do apologize because we're doing on the fly. This one, AB, I think is raised up a couple of times, and then you, sir, over here. We'll take in batches. Well, we have 10 more minutes, so I'll try to get as much questions as possible. Yes.
I'll just do a short one. I want to follow up on the GG bill. I supported it because they will reduce plastic pollution. Cigarettes have plastics in it.
I like that you look over there.
But how do you navigate the balance between individual rights and public health objectives?
Yeah, so we looked at the fundamental question of rights, and we came to the decision that you have no fundamental right to harm yourself. And you certainly don't have a fundamental right to harm others. That's secondary smoking, intentionally smoking. So that was the easier part, that smoking doesn't just affect you, it affects others. When it came to the fundamental right of you to harm yourself, of course, some people will say, well, if I want to harm myself, I harm myself now. But I felt that if there was a significant cost to society for you to do that, then you don't have that fundamental right. What do I mean? If you knowingly smoke, when every single piece of scientific evidence says that it causes cancer, causes respiratory disease, causes chronic illness, and yet you still do it, and you enjoy tax-funded public health care, then that right is gone. Because it's not just you harming yourself, it's you harming yourself and having others to pick up the tab for it. So we did grapple through the thinking of fundamental liberties, but we came to the conclusion that you have no fundamental liberty to harm yourself, especially when that is going to cost society. And that's how we decided.
Alright, sir, keep it short because we are going to finish in 8 minutes. I'll try to get as many questions as possible. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Lokman. I'm from Cheras, Selangor. What's up, Cheras, guys? So I'm here just to talk about the overall topic, which is politics 101. This does not confine to just real politics. We talk about office politics and everything, and it's about personal journey. So if you were to recommend like a 3 or maybe 5-step plan of how should I climb up the ladder, how should I do it? If you were to do it again, how would you do it?
Very specific, young man. I think you'll go far.
You know, if I were to give one piece of advice about progressing and moving, finding your way through your career, is to try to be as unintimidating as possible. Because I've always seen in any organization in which there are politics, people who are obviously alphas, they attract a lot of envy and a lot of detractors. And counterintuitively, if you want to succeed in a very political environment, you are better off being a silent assassin. Nobody sees you coming, and then suddenly you become Prime Minister. I mean, you know, I give you an example. This is my good friend. Tomorrow I'm having lunch with him. Ismail Sabri. None of us saw that happening. Okay, you can argue he's the shortest Prime Minister or whatever, but I think he did a decent job within the short time that we had. And he got there, and I've known him for a long time. We were at Skop Muda back in the late 90s. And I think if we got onto a time machine and went back and asked our committee, do you think who's going to be Prime Minister? Was it Hisham, whatever? I don't think many would have said, yeah, he got there. And he got there because right place at the right time. But I think he also got there because he was careful. He was careful. So one can argue the same thing with Tan Sri Mahyudin. You know, I mean, it was the Sheraton move and all that. right place at the right time. So two ways of doing it. Either you become an alpha, like Sadiq, and look at what happened. Or you become a silent assassin. Before you know it, you're running the show.
Sorry, yes, you were over there been asking. Yuki, can you pass the mic to this gentleman over here? He's been a few times.
Hello, my name is Sajil. Very excited to see both of you and Sadiq today because this is my first time. I just wanted to see you. And thank you to Tanusha for that because she introduced Buddha to me. So thank you, Tanusha. My question is, if you could go back and give yourself some advice when you were starting out, what would that be? And second question, which is important, that can I have a photo with you later? Thank you.
I think it's the same answer as just now. If I were to give 20-something version of myself advice, it'd be to be more, one of the faces in the crowd. Because I think you don't want to unnecessarily attract attention. Of course, when the time is right, you have to prove yourself. I'm not telling you guys to just be passengers here. Leader must be a leader. But don't unnecessarily go out and attract attention. It's something that I advise Sadiq and myself as well. Because I think there's a time for us to get out there, and there's a time for us to just let others go and go for this.
Side note, if I were to advise my 20-year-old self, it would be buy Bitcoin. Yes, young lady over there. Yes, pass the mic. Oh, you want to ask? Oh, okay. You got a question from online, is it?
From online, yes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Assalamualaikum semua, KJ. Nama saya Rahmat. Kalau KJ tall, dark and handsome, saya small, dark and handsome too.
Rahmat, question please.
So there's two questions. One is from our grassroots member from Kapal, Zumi. Soalan dia, apa pendapat KJ apabila scene politik Malaysia, adakah boleh terima semakin ramai ahli politik wanita? First question. Second question, apakah nasihat KJ kepada ahli-ahli muda to move forward?
So, yang soalan pertama tu, saya rasa masih lagi tak cukup wanita. Satu, of course, saya rasa persekitaran politik negara masih tidak mengizinkan pelibatan wanita. We don't make it easy for ladies to become involved in politics. I think, I'm not saying that because half the people here are ladies, but because I believe in that. Kita kena tahu bahawa the social expectation of ladies are different. You can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, sebagai seorang bapa, saya pun tahu social expectations of women are different. They're expected to go out there and become politicians as well as look after the household. That's just the fact of life, and I think that's unfair. Because macam mana dia nak buat semua tu? So I do think that we have to make it easier. Recently, we had this podcast episode with Rafidah. I disagreed with her because Rafidah ni, not every woman is Rafidah Aziz. She's a superwoman, dia boleh buat semua. Tapi bila dia kata, tak boleh ada kuota, pilih saja based on merit. If you leave it that way, you're not going to reach not even 30%. Not even 30%. So, dalam hal ini saya tak ada masalah. Mesti ada usaha untuk kita bagi penglibatan yang lebih luas kepada wanita. That's why I'm a big fan of Amira. When I interviewed them, I said, I'm not a fan of something, I'm a fan of Amira. So I want to see more ladies involved. Soalan yang kedua, nasihat untuk ahli-ahli muda. Ya, macam tadi lah, it's long term. It's long term. You have to accept that even in the next PRU, it can be very, very painful. If you accept that and understand that it's long term, it's okay. Tapi kalau you rasa you akan menang dalam pilihan raya akan datang, you'll be disappointed. So to me, managing expectation is important. Ya. Dan macam saya dengar Zaidel tadi, Zaidel kata, lepas ni jangan malas, kita buat program semua tu and all that. Yeah, but also take your time. take your time. You know, you can't make things happen. You can't make things happen overnight. So now the most important thing, benda yang paling penting sekarang ni, and I told Amira this, is whether you like it or not, this is an opportunity for you to say that Muda is more than just its founding president. And he's okay with that. He's okay with that. And it's important because the force of personality, bukan Sadiq nak benda tu, but because the force of his personality was so strong that you might not see it, but as an outsider, I'm telling you, bila kita fikir Muda, is Sadiq. And plus he was your only ahli parlimen. So of course, naturally siapa yang cakap di parlimen? Sadiq. So now is the time that you have not to forget him, don't forget him, but to move beyond Sadiq, yeah? And build a solid base. If you have a solid base, it will come. The success will come. Yeah.
Alright, folks, I'm so sorry. We already extended. Ada satu sini and kita ada 3 lah. Okay, kita kumpul lah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you first, yang lady.
Hai, Assalamualaikum. Saya daripada program Teroka Bayi Muda juga.
Okay.
So, soalan saya sepanjang tengokkan dalam universiti saya banyak aktif dalam aktiviti voluntary untuk orang asli. Baik, sampai juga saya macam go with polisi orang asli lah, tentang apa kerajaan buat untuk orang asli. So saya nak minta pendapat daripada KJ. So sepanjang 20 tahun terlibat dalam bidang politik, what's your expectation untuk orang asli? Sebab end up orang akan cakap biar je, diorang akan dengan nature diorang. Even though kita try untuk improve diorang punya education, but semua orang macam like let go je lah diorang, sebab diorang dah biasa dengan diorang punya culture. So in your opinion, how we want to elevate diorang punya education?
Yeah, you know, it's a fantastic question because masa saya ahli parlimen Rembau, saya pun ada 2-3 perkampungan orang asli di Rembau. Bukan kita tak bawa perkhidmatan ke orang. Banyak usaha dibuat with Jakwa, dan we as ahli parlimen pun pergi. Bukan nak kata semua tak nak pada peluang. Ada yang nak. Bagi mereka yang nak, kita bagi peluang kepada mereka. But we also have to understand that there is something about for some of them, dia punya budaya sendiri yang nak teruskan gaya hidup yang mereka ada. So that becomes an approach of how you empower community. Dan akhirnya you kena serah kepada dia. Kalau sebahagian daripada dia rasa the lifestyle that they have, jaga kawasan rayau, jaga kawasan mereka, subsistence living is how they want, then you have to work together with them to make sure that they can do that dalam keadaan yang selamat. So bring them primary healthcare, bring them basic education. Tapi paksaan tu susah. Paksaan tu susah. I've always felt that paksaan tu susah. Dan bukan nak kata kita tak bagi peluang kepada dia, kita bagi peluang. Tapi sometimes they decide that that is the lifestyle that they want. Ada di kalangan orang asli yang nak keluar daripada the lifestyle that they have, the budaya that they have, to become professionals. They've succeeded. We've seen so many cases like that. So my view is that biarlah kita ada keadaan di mana yang nak buat, we reduce the barrier to them so that they are able to succeed. Tapi yang mereka yang susah untuk kita paksa, we don't force, because there are many different layers of culture there that we also tak apa faham.
Okay, there. So Khairy.
Hi sir. Hello. Hi sir. Thank you for choosing me to answer, even though it's quite short.
I didn't choose. So I don't choose.
You pointed at me just now. But I would warn you that my question is quite spicy and it's quite surprising no one has asked this long of president. The recent sources and rumors have said that your fellow friend Dr. Sri Najib Razak is being shot in the case to the prison sentence to 6 years, and even pardoned rumors. What is your say on that, and how do you see politics going if he was to be pardoned? And yeah, that's my question.
So I think the pardon process is, I think, a big great area. So today, kalau kita baca dalam media sosial, semua nak tolak keputusan ni pada orang lain. So for instance, the supporters of the government akan kata, ini kuasa mutlak yang Tuan Agong. But
dulu itu Harun.
But if you read the constitution properly, hanya ada 3 benda saja yang mana yang Tuan Agong ada kuasa mutlak. This is not one of them. Everything else in the constitution, the monarch is bound by the advice of someone, whether it's the cabinet or the pardon squad. Yang Tuan Agong boleh lantik Perdana Menteri, boleh buat parlimen dan boleh panggil mesyuarat Raja-Raja Melayu. That's kuasa mutlak. Dia tak payah dapat nasihat daripada orang lain. Tapi benda lain dia kena ada. That's the whole point of having a constitutional monarchy. So saya rasa it's not fair of government supporters in this particular case to say that dia tak ada kuasa apa-apa, because benda ni bukan Agong panggil pardon board and say I want to get this guy off. Dia mestilah datang daripada Attorney General. Attorney General bentangkan benda ni, this is what the representation that we receive from Dr. Sri Najib. Ini adalah sebab dia, hujah-hujah dia, dan ini adalah recommendation yang kita bagi kepada Yang Tuan Agong. Yang Tuan Agong will not decide on something of such importance without the advice of the pardon board, which is principally the Attorney General and the minister who is in charge. Dalam kes ini, menteri dia adalah menteri yang jaga wilayah persekutuan. So, I think the first thing is don't push it to anyone. You know, whatever it is, you have to own it.
Okay, last one.
Sekejap, lagi. I tak nak jadi macam government tak nak jawab.
Kalau PH dah salahkan saya, bukan tak nak jawab, saya tak lagi.
But secondly, sebab kes ini adalah case of tremendous public importance, you have to be able to at least inform the public why this was considered. You tak boleh cakap macam alasan yang diberi oleh Pegawai Negara baru ni. Kata Pegawai Negara ada kuasa untuk berhentikan apa-apa proceeding. Of course lah, dalam perlembagaan Pegawai Negara ni ada kuasa yang maha besar. Tapi you have to understand between the letter of the Constitution and the spirit of the Constitution. You tak boleh sembunyi di sebalik letter of the Constitution. Kata it's up to me lah, as the Attorney General, if I want to continue a case or not. You have to explain to the public, to say that these are the reasons why I stopped this case. 47 cases are berhenti. No, I mean, this is a public interest. You cannot hide behind the letter of the Constitution, the letter of the law. You have to explain the spirit of the law, why you did that. So kalau katalah dalam kes ini betul lah, ya, yang Dr. Sri Najib dapat 50% discount on a sentence, you have to try to explain, because what people are saying out there is very simple. And these are people who have nothing personally against Najib. But they are saying, how come there's a different set of law, rules for some people and for others they are not? That's the you have to answer that. Kalau you nak answer lah, katalah you nak answer, kata in recognition of his service to the country, then answer that. Because otherwise you are insulting the principle of equality of the law, under the law, for the citizens of Malaysia. Tapi kalau you betul-betul nak cakap, because in recognition of his many years of service as Prime Minister, kita rasa kita nak kurangkan, then just answer that. Sama ada orang setuju ke tidak, at least we have something to hold on to. And we don't feel that it's something so arbitrary that he gets it, but anyone else will not get it. So I think that's very important. Yeah, so whatever I think of him personally, saya rasa keputusan daripada lembaga pengampunan ini sangat-sangat penting untuk dijelaskan, at least hujah. Kalau tak, people will have a crisis of credibility against the system. Kenapa dalam kes macam ni boleh dikurangkan? What about somebody I know yang dihantar ke penjara, tak pernah dilayan pun dia punya permohonan pengampunan? It speaks to us as a nation, how we explain this.
Alright, last one over there.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum KJ. Nama saya Nafis. berumur 19 tahun. Jadi saya ada soalan untuk KJ. Jadi saya rasa ramai anak muda di sini tertarik untuk kita menjadikan negara kita lebih kepada politik dasar daripada politik naratif, dan saya rasa perkara ini perlu kita luaskan dalam pembentukan sebuah negara yang lebih progresif. Jadi apa nasihat KJ untuk anak muda ni lebih kepada meneliti dasar-dasar yang dibuat kerajaan dan lebih kepada komen berkaitan dengan dasar kerajaan, walaupun dasar itu tidak berapa boleh. Macam KJ sendiri pernah dikritik tentang GEG kan, bukan dasar yang popular tetapi ianya harus dilaksanakan sekarang. Jadi apa komen KJ berkaitan dengan itu?
Saya jawab beginilah. Dulu ada yang kata kita kena buat semua perbincangan berkenaan dengan identity politics sebagai contoh, ya, dan just fokus on politik dasar saja. Identity politik ni politik berkaitan dengan bangsa, kaum, agama dan sebagainya. But politics is not just about winning the mind, it's about winning the heart. Dan orang biasa, mengundi biasa, dia bukan hanya memikirkan dasar saja, but they want somebody who speak to their hearts. So kalau you tak langsung tak cakap pasal identity politics, then you surrender that entire discussion to orang yang akan momokkan orang dengan race, religion. I'm not saying that exploit race and religion. I'm saying that if you don't participate in that conversation, then you are giving complete free pass to those who want to utilize and capitalize on those issues. So bagi saya, yes, kita semua nak politik dasar. Kita semua nak bincang soal politik dasar. But the problem with politik dasar is it doesn't speak to here. So akhirnya, you kena cakap kat sini juga. Dan bila you cakap kat sini, you kena cakap lah. Suka tak suka, you kena cakap soal identity, soal agama, soal bangsa, soal your mother tongue, education, soal your religious freedoms. That's the heart. That's speaking to the heart. I used to be like you. Kita nak cakap politik dasar. Tapi kalau cakap politik dasar tanpa sentuhan kepada hati seorang pengundi, then you will not capture not just their imagination but their hearts. There's a reason why in warfare we talk about winning hearts and minds. Winning the mind is one thing. That's your ideology. That's making sure that you believe that you can convince people that what you are selling them in terms of way of life, future, is better than the other person. Winning the hearts, to say that they trust you, that's the most difficult thing. Kita orang muda ni kadang-kadang kita very mechanical. We feel that, our rational thought and mind boleh menang. But politics is not about the rational mind only. It's also about the irrational heart. And that's something that you need to remember.
Okay folks, tepukan dulu. Sebenarnya sebelum kita habiskan sesi malam ini, saya nak maklumkan bahawa malam ini ditaja oleh dua lah. Pertama, kita nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada rakan-rakan fellow komrad. Zain, terima kasih Encik Zain. Terima kasih Rahmat ada. Tukar Rahmat ada. Tak apa, kawan fellow komrad. Kemudian terima kasih kepada Overtime juga, ingat ya. Kopi, latte, cappuccino dan sebagainya. Dan jangan lupa terima kasih juga kepada Parti Muda. Jadi kita nak ada pesanan penaja sikit sebelum kita minta Tuan Khairy untuk cerakinkan apa cik merangkum apa malam ni. Saya ingin menjemput untuk bersepatah dua kata Presiden kita YB Amira Aisyah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Terima kasih banyak-banyak kepada Zaidil. I think it's a very enlightening session. And of course, thank you very much kepada Tuan Khairy Jamaluddin. I hope the session is enlightening to you as it is to all of us today. Saya rasa antara perkara paling penting bagi kami dalam muda, and I've spoken to Tuan Khairy Jamaluddin sebelum ini, for us to understand yang dalam politik ini humility goes both ways, right? Kita selalu minta orang yang lebih berpengalaman untuk beri ruang kepada orang muda, tetapi it's important juga sebagai orang muda untuk kita recognize that there's a lot for us to learn from people that has a lot of experience before us, like Tuan Khairy Jamaluddin. And so for everyone to come here today, tonight, to spend your time, I know there are many Muda members, Muda leaders, but I know there are those who are not from Muda as well. For your information, sir, we actually have a lot more people who wanted to register, but we had to close the registration. Simply because, as I've mentioned on your podcast, we're not a rich party, and so we can't afford such a big space. But we hope that although this is your first time with us, this won't be your last time. I look forward to the future of Muda and also to your future with Malaysia, because I believe in the deepest of my heart that one day the path will cross between Muda and yourself. In whatever form or manner, right? And so once again, thank you very much. And I hope that politics, policies and personal journey, all that you have shared with everyone tonight will give hope again, because I know that hope is a very expensive commodity nowadays, and I hope that in Muda we will remain hopeful so that we will remain fighting for the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Saya just nak tambah sikit sajalah pada apa yang disebut oleh Puan Presiden tadi. She said that she believes that our paths will cross at some point for the country. Cuma saya minta satu je lah, if our paths ever do cross, then let it not be for the sake of convenience and expediency. We've seen too many examples over the last couple of years of paths crossing for convenience and expediency. So kalau betul-betul lah our paths cross later, biarlah it's based on something more than that. Not just because we have common enemies, not just because we are jumping into bed in a marriage of convenience, but it's because we truly believe in something together. Because trust me, benda yang convenient ni dia tak tahan lama, and we want to have something that lasts. Okay?
Tuan-tuan bagi pihak Setia, kami ucapkan terima kasih kepada hadir pada malam ini. Kalau tidak keberatan, kalau tuan-tuan nak ambil gambar, minta izin, sila bersopan dengan Tuan Khairy. Pakcik Ani nak, she's a big fan. Aunty Ani. Cuma tuan-tuan dan puan, terima kasih kepada Parti Muda, rakan-rakan fellow Komrat dan juga overtime. Hati-hati. Kita ambil satu gambar ramai-ramai, boleh? Okey, sebelum tu kita tepukkan gemuruh untuk kita punya tetamu.